you. And with me today, I have the glamorous Joanne Butcher, who is a visionary entrepreneur, internationally acclaimed business coach, and a beacon of inspiration for myself and other creatives navigating the often challenging world of filmmaking. With over 30 years of experience helping filmmakers turn their artistic dreams into successful businesses, Joanne is on a mission to transform the industry one story at a time. As the CEO of Filmmakers Success, she's guided countless clients, including myself, from struggling artists to industry powerhouses, helping them raise millions of dollars for their projects. Her infectious passion, no nonsense advice, and unparalleled expertise have made her a sought after speaker, mentor, and advocate for creative professionals worldwide. Joanne's journey has not been without its own trials. Her resilience and ability to harness challenges as opportunities for growth make her an especially fitting guest on my podcast today. Joanne brings a unique perspective on how trauma, creativity, and business intersect, how filmmakers can turn adversity into a driving force for their success. Welcome to the show, Joanne. So great to have you here.
It was amazing. Thank you so much. That was amazing.
Oh, anything for our Joanne. Oh my God, Joanne, so it'd be great for you to share, with us about your own personal journey and some key moments in your life or career where you overcame personal or professional challenges to get to where you are today.
Well, I know that you are a trauma coach, and so I feel as though I can talk about some things that maybe I don't, normally talk about very much professionally, but are absolutely part of my story. Um, and I guess the main thing is that I grew up with violence, and I suffered at the hands of my father, who almost killed me when I was 17 by strangling me. And, when I look back on that experience, no, I didn't tell anybody. I didn't tell my mother. I didn't tell anybody. I kept that secret, for many, many years. And it wasn't until I was 30 years old, I got sober. I've been sober now for a very long time. But I got sober when I was 30, and that was when I started to actually be able to address the things that had happened to me in my childhood, which I hadn't addressed whatsoever up until that point. I always say I learned anything I know about emotions from Alcoholics Anonymous. I didn't know anything before that. I was just trying to be a robot, trying to be perfect, and not doing a very good job at that.
It's interesting, yeah, because the fact that it took 3 decades for you to realize what had happened to you.
Oh, I had no idea. I had no idea at all. And so many of us use, whether it's alcohol or drugs or food or sex or gambling or whatever, all the addictions, it's all designed to keep down the knowledge of our true feelings, you know. And then the culture that we live in is also very interested in making sure that we keep all our emotions hidden. I remember when I was early in recovery, one of my friends said to me, "What did they do to you over there in England?" It was just like, huh? Because in America, people are allowed to have more feelings than English people are. And then also, I was just talking to a woman today who's Haitian. This is a Haitian art here. And I grew up with a Caribbean father, and the level of strictness and control was so extreme. And a lot of that is cultural, you know, a lot of it is cultural. So I just grew up in a culture where I didn't know until I was an adult that I didn't have to be able to sit completely still and completely silent for hours on end. That was how I grew up.
Wow, suppression, suppression. Very damaging, very damaging. So, what inspired you to then work with filmmakers, and how has this journey shaped your approach to resilience?
Well, I don't remember where that happened in my recovery life exactly, but it was a long time ago. And when I first moved to Miami, and the truth is, I had already left the country once to escape my father. And then when I chose to come to Miami, it was because there had been some level of reconciliation. I was always, my whole life, trying to reconcile with my father. And so I came to Miami, and I was doing a master's degree in English at the University of Miami, and there was a guy in the English department, and he invited me to come to this art event. And I was like, oh, I really like that. I really like art. And then his wife ended up loaning me a bicycle. And this was in Miami. So after a few months, it got to be the summer and I couldn't breathe. I'm like on the bike, where's the air? It was so hot. And anyway, and then a group of their friends became my first friends, and they were all artists. And, I had just left London, and there's a lot of art happening in London, but I didn't grow up with anything like that in my family. And so it always felt like it was for those people over there. It didn't feel like it was anything connected to me. But when I came to Miami, and my first like 4, 5, 6, 10 friends were all artists. And this first friend said, you want to come to this art event? And I said, well, I don't have any money. My discretionary income at the time was $2.50 a week, which is like £1.50. And I said, oh, I'd love to, but I don't have any money. And he said, well, you could volunteer. So I started volunteering, and it just ended up that in the week I'm going to school and getting my master's in English, and I'm spending all my time with these artists doing art things. And we ended up starting showing movies in a bookstore. Actually, we showed art films with a capital A, experimental art films by like Jean-Luc Godard and people like that. And then we opened a cinema, and I was still like the kid. I was like 22, 23, something like that. I remember I used to always wear big hats. I was a real foreigner. And we ended up starting a cinema. And the person who ran the cinema, for the first year, he rented films, because this is how cinemas work. You license a film from a distributor, and you get tickets. People buy tickets, and then you send a percentage to the distributor. And for the whole first year, he had licensed films from all these different distributors and never paid anybody.
Oh, interesting.
And so I first of all, somebody else, and then I took over the cinema and a film school. But it's really how I learned all about distribution, and I learned about the business side, because I ran a cinema. And we had to do marketing, and we had to sell tickets, and and so I learned all of that side of filmmaking. And when I first took over the cinema and the film school, I was screenwriting, I was teaching screenwriting, I was a filmmaker. And I said, well, when I took over the cinema, I said, okay, well, I'll do this for 2 years. I'll take 2 years to do administration stuff, and then I'll get back to filmmaking. And I just never went back to filmmaking. I just got more and more involved in the business side of things. And eventually I did try and get away from filmmaking. And I actually went into something called capital campaigns. So I started to raise millions of dollars as a fundraiser. I became a professional fundraiser. And it was a couple of years into that I I became very ill and I became too sick to work. And when I look back on my 7 years that I spent in bed, and I lost everything. I lost my career, my social life, my romantic life, my friends, everything. I lost everything. Now, when I look back on it, I believe that even though I had been in recovery for a long time, I had done a lot of therapy, worked really, really, really hard. I believe that my childhood experiences of nearly being killed by my father were really at the core of what that whole experience was. In fact, a friend of mine who's a therapist said to me, she said, you came to a point where you weren't sure if you wanted to live or not. So I was in this kind of near death state. I never actually had anything that was a life and death disease. I had migraines, I had, chronic fatigue, I had things like that. But there was something about it that was a little bit like a death experience for 7 years.
Yeah. Oh,
Well, I
wow.
talked to.
Yeah. Because also, how old were you then when that happened?
How what?
How old were you when you became ill?
How old was I? 46, 47, something like that.
Wow. So it was,
Older,
oh,
50
okay.
maybe. I'm
Oh,
terrible with dates and ages and stuff.
oh no.
Can't do it to save my life.
Oh wow. Because I was saying, because it took you like 3 decades to even understand what happened to you, you still got ill because, and it just goes to show that healing really is a continuous journey. Oh, wow. And so, how have your personal experiences with adversity now influenced the way that you help people, the way that you coach and mentor filmmakers?
Well, I think that the way that the very specific way that my father attacked me more than once was by strangling me. And I grew up in this really repressed way, real silence. And so I had no voice at all. And I think today, when you meet me, you couldn't imagine that. You
Yeah.
couldn't imagine that. I was talking to this lady today who just recently got into 12-step programs, and she can't speak at meetings. And it just took me back. And I said, oh, that's how I was. My first 6 months in recovery, I could say, hi, my name's Joanne. That was about it. I couldn't say anything else.
Wow.
And it took me more than 6 months to actually be able to speak. And when people meet me today, there's no way that they could see me as that person,
Yeah,
that
exactly.
person who had no voice whatsoever. And so today, my work is about helping people find their voice. And I may have just frozen. I'm not sure.
Oh
Did I
no,
freeze?
nope, nope. You're still on.
No, did I freeze?
No, not at all.
Did I freeze?
No.
No. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I didn't say anything for a while. Um, so I feel as though my job on the planet is to help people find their voice, and I spent a few years in youth development. I thought I was going to be a social worker at one point. I love working with teenagers, and people often complain teenagers are really loud, but often they have no voice. They don't know how to talk about their feelings. They don't know. I was working with some in San Francisco at a YMCA, and we worked with really, really poor inner city kids. And they had actually learned how to talk about the violence in their community, the gun violence, the drug gangs, all that kind of thing. We taught them how to do that. They couldn't talk about the violence in their own families. And that again was my experience. That's what I couldn't talk about. That's what I couldn't. I didn't even know I had to talk about it. I didn't know it was there. It was disappeared. So I feel as though anything I do in life is about helping people find their voice. And then I took two sides of myself. One was the filmmaker, producer, that side, writer, and then the other side was the fundraiser.
Mm.
And I developed this methodology where I focus filmmakers on the money. And it's just very interesting how it works for people, because what I find is that when filmmakers focus on the money, which is the last thing they want to focus on,
Yeah.
they want to do the screenwriting, and they want to be directing, and they want to be acting, and they want to be editing, and they want to be doing all those fun creative things. But they're trying to do it without, I think of it as the masculine, without structure, without dates, without time, without deadlines, without budgets. And
True.
once you put all those things in place, they do way better.
Wow.
And so I see that I'm helping filmmakers find their voice through a particular passageway that is to do with money and business.
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean,
That's what I do.
filmmaking. Yeah, and that's something which I guess a lot of people don't understand, that being a filmmaker is being an entrepreneur. So it's running a business. And so, we've been an entrepreneur, and we know within the film industry there comes a lot of rejection and a lot of criticism, which can be triggering for some. So how do you actually help your clients to stay motivated in this industry?
Um, I think that being a coach, I I I love coaching.
Mm.
I think coaching is fantastic. One of the first things that I learned about coaching was that the client already has everything that they need. They may not know it, they may not have connected to it, but they have everything they need. So you're not sort of working from a perspective of, well, they don't know anything about money, and, now I'm going to give them the information. It's not that at all. Um, it's really about, to me, this thing about finding your voice. And once you can be really clear and articulate about what your film is and what your project is and what money you need, and how the investor is going to make it back, or how the funder is going to have an impact with that funding. Once you can speak that really clearly, then it gives people a lot of confidence. So a lot of times clients come to me and they have no confidence, but partly it's because they really have no idea what to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
They don't really know what their business is. They don't really know how the numbers all add up, and they don't understand all of that. And so they have a real lack of confidence, but it's based on really not having knowledge. And,
Mm.
and I always try and remind filmmakers, nobody ever taught you how to raise money. Nobody ever taught you the business. Nobody ever taught you how to show a business plan and how that all works. Nobody ever taught you any of those things.
Mm.
So, some are sort of going out there being like, I'm full of confidence and I'm going to get this film made, and I will not be stopped, but really underneath it, it's like a boy whistling in the dark.
Yeah.
They don't
Yeah.
really have any foundation to stand on,
Yeah.
so sometimes they're sort of pushing themselves, or people are pushing them to go out and say, I have confidence, and if you support me, then it's all going to be okay. But it's really not based on business principles,
Mm.
right? So once I provide some training about business and money and the way it all works, then filmmakers can have a lot more confidence
Mm.
moving forward with that information.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, excellent. Yeah. And do you have any examples of any filmmakers who turned an adverse situation into a groundbreaking project?
I can only think about the thing that happened yesterday. So yesterday, I got a text from one of my clients with a photograph of a check for $100,000.
Wow.
And I'm trying to, I don't want to reveal because I don't know if he wants it public yet. But anyway, when I started working with this particular client, which was back about last January, and he had been working on this particular film for 5 years. And I said to him, so when is it going to be finished? And he said, 2026, 27. And when I tell this story and when I say that, everybody, whether they know about film or not, knows there's something wrong with that
Yeah.
picture. There's something wrong with 2026, 2027. It's like, so,
Somewhere in the ether. It's like,
you know, and he'd been working on it for 5 years. It's a stated fact that most films take 7 years to make. So he wasn't out of line.
Yeah.
But it's not exciting when you hear that. If I say to you, I'm going to finish my film in March of 2025, you're like, oh, what is it? What's it about? But if I say 2026, 27, you're going to move on and get your laundry done.
Yeah.
There's no urgency there. There's nothing to get your teeth into. So in our first session, I think it turned out that there was going to be this event connected with the film on October the 18th. And then another event in March 2025. So I said to him, okay, I want you to redo your pitch, and you're going to talk about, we're going to have a work in progress screening on October the 18th, and we're going to have the premiere in March 2025. For a whole month, I thought he was going to have a heart attack. I thought, he's he was just so filled with anxiety about saying this film is going to be finished, And he was like, but, and I said, do you know what a work in progress screening is? And he said, no, what is it? And I said, well, it's, you show something, you show what you're working on.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be finished. It doesn't have to be complete. It doesn't have to be. And he was like, oh, so it started to sink in. And, now he's raised $190,000 of the $300,000 goal. And the work in progress screening happened. It went incredibly well. And there's going to be a premiere in March.
Oh, wow.
But a film producer has to drive the project forward because nobody else is going to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Filmmakers are always looking for somebody else who's going to raise the money for them. And I do sometimes say that my middle name is Cold Water. It's like I'm just always throwing cold water on these fantasies. Like, oh, some famous producer is going to come along and find me the money to make my film. Like, yeah, right.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Amazing, thank you. And so what are the most common kind of mistakes that you see filmmakers make when trying to establish filmmaking as a sustainable career?
Not thinking about the money.
Oh, okay.
To me, that's it. That's it. Because I can, my clients are so talented, so I know when somebody starts working with me, I haven't read their script, I haven't seen their films, I know nothing about their work. And I already know before I read it that it's going to be good.
Interesting.
Because I've spoken to them and I know who they are, and I know their diligence, their devotion, their commitment to their work. And it's always good. It's always good. So the work is good. And then I just need to help bring in the business and the structure. And do you know what? I forgot your question.
Oh, yeah. So any common mistakes that you
Oh,
see?
yeah. So they're all stuck in the same place. They're all stuck in this place of, well, if I make my script better, or if I work harder, or if I'm, if I get into more festivals, or if I, they're all stuck in the creative.
Yeah.
And I can rely on my clients to put 100% of their attention into the creative. They all work so hard and they're so talented, but they have never put any time into the business.
Yeah. Yeah.
So once we can start to focus on the business, not only is that helpful because then we raise money and we get films made, but it also takes some of that pressure off. Is that good enough? Is my script good enough? Am I good enough? Am I a filmmaker? Am I really a filmmaker? Am I all of that? I
Mm.
almost said bullshit.
Yeah. It's fine.
Um,
It
so the
is.
focus of that because they're busy learning something else. They're learning a new set of skills, which is, all about the money and all of that stuff,
Yeah.
which they've never really worked on before.
True.
So, um, but I find that it really helps filmmakers when they can take their attention away from, am I good enough? And put it on, oh, but I've got to get the business, and I've got to get an entertainment lawyer, and I need a budget, and I got to, right? It's a whole different set of skills. And um, and my clients are always way better at it than they think they are, way better at it than they think they're going to be. They just never had any training.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And it sounds like a lot of it is very much a mindset thing, about just working on your own, mental wellness and trying to overcome any personal doubts and, any internal setbacks that you might have. And I feel like a lot of it is doing the work on yourself as well.
It really is because, and this is again, I come at it always from this perspective of money, which is in order to raise money, you have to be in the most positive mindset.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, if I'm telling myself all day long that I'm no good or I'm a bad person or I'm a weak person or that's terrible for fundraising.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or if I'm somebody who thinks that it's all other people's fault. I don't get many of those as my clients, but somebody who's blaming other people or blaming the system or blaming society or blaming Hollywood or blame whatever that is, that's not going to get you very far either. And recently in a class, I asked the question, why is it that investors don't read scripts?
Mhm.
And one of the filmmakers in the class said, because they're dumb. And, and I said, well, let's look at this. Why would people who are really good with money,
Yeah.
right? Why would they not want to read your script? And, eventually we jointly came to the conclusion that people with money may very well know about money, but they don't pretend that they know about script writing.
True.
Why would they? So, but I do think that there is, in probably half the filmmakers I meet, there is some idea that people with money are dumb.
Interesting. Oh wow. No, thank you for
And
sharing that.
yeah, and that they if that they can somehow figure that out, but it's not true.
No.
But filmmakers need to have be 100% positive when they're raising money, whether it's from individual donors or foundations or grants or corporate sponsors or investors
Yeah.
have to be coming from 100% not perfect. I don't like that word. 100% positive spiritual place. And so it takes a lot of work to get to that place.
It
That
does.
takes a lot of internal work to get to that place.
Definitely. Well, yeah, and I think first of all, it's about healing from trauma. It all comes down to healing from, whatever may have happened to you, because there's no way you can be in this positive state unless it's toxic positivity. If
Right.
yeah, if you're, severely traumatized, with internal wounds that you still need to heal from. So, how about from your own experience, like what's worked for you, to, build up your resilience and to make you the positive Joanne that you are today?
Um, I would say hours every day, hours every day of meditation and reading. I'm doing a lot of reading right now of books about the spirituality of money. And it's funny because I was talking about that the other day, and somebody said, I never heard about the spirituality of money.
Mm,
And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. But most faith traditions do have a history of thinking about the spirituality of money. For some reason, this story, the story in the Bible of the master who gave talents, he gave his servants talents to do with, and the one he gave 10 to multiplied them, and the one he gave 5 to multiplied them, and the one he gave 1 to buried it in the earth.
okay, interesting.
Right. And so I think that what we are doing is we're taking a film and using it as an opportunity to to shine in this positive way. And film, requires all these different skills brought together, including the skill of business and fundraising. And then we bring that shining version of ourselves to our investors and our donors, um, and get our films made to actually manifest what is a vision into reality. That's a very spiritual action, to be
That
able
is,
to manifest an idea into a reality.
wow. And you can obviously make that happen. You make magic happen.
I'm reading I'm reading a book called The Magic of Money.
Oh, wow. Oh, interesting. Okay. Oh, I love that. So you're just constantly reading and learning and growing as yourself so that you can offer more to clients. Yeah, I think, that's phenomenal. And so, what advice would you give to your younger self when you were first navigating all these challenges in your life and career?
That's so interesting because when I was in my period of working in youth development, I started to realize, I was like, oh, this was the age that everything really went wrong for me. 17, 18, 9. I got away from the house to college when I was 19. Um, but then some real violence happened after I graduated from college. And so I realized, oh, I'm here working with these kids who I still love that age group, like 15 to 24. I love that age group because that's when it went down for me. I ended up living in hiding. Nobody knew where I lived. Nobody had my phone number. This was in London.
Wow.
And it was a terrible, terrible time. You know, university was better because I was away and I was supposed to be away, kind of thing. Um, but after that, oof. So, you know, I don't know what I would tell my younger self. I don't know, to get as far away as possible. It was
Right,
dangerous.
yeah. To
It was
get
really
away.
dangerous. And it took me a while to figure out that I just had to, but I think that this is what I would tell her, that there's a lot of support available. And I didn't know that. I didn't know.
Yeah, yeah.
My best friend took me to oh, there's an organization, the Samaritans. She took
Okay.
me to the Samaritans. Um, and I got a lawyer, but there would have been an awful lot more help, and I didn't know any of that. So I would tell her there is so much help available.
Yeah, yeah. You just have to ask, I guess.
Yeah, I didn't know. I was so used to not having anyone to talk to about anything.
Yeah.
I was just trying to figure it out by myself. But
Yeah.
there's just no reason. There are organizations that will help, whoever you are, whatever kind of trouble you're experiencing, there are organizations out there and loving people to help. It just took me till I was 30 to start finding that.
It happens. And again, that's a trauma response as well, where you're just so independent. You can't rely on anyone because you can't trust anybody. So you just carry on your own. So now, what does Victor mean to you in the context of your own life today?
That is such an amazing question because my father, who was really my perpetrator, his middle name was Victor,
Mm.
and he just died last year. And um, and for a long time now, Victor has been a very important word for me because I had to overcome that Victor to find my victory. And I think of victory as being um, like I was talking about, that I want my clients to have the experience of bringing them the most shining version of themselves when they're talking to somebody about money, you know. And so I think of that as a victory, because I had a very, very strange relationship with money growing up, and I finally one day realized it long before I started working with filmmakers, but it was what led me to become a fundraiser. I was like, I've got to learn about this money thing.
Yeah, yeah,
I knew
figure that.
nothing.
Interesting. Yeah. Wow. Thank you. Yeah. And so what's next for you and Filmmaker Success? Any projects or goals on the horizon?
My goal is always just making more movies, make more movies, make more movies. And in my case, it's not me making movies, it's my clients making movies. So I just was having a little email exchange this morning with one of my clients who has finished, she's a documentary filmmaker. She's just finished her first fiction film working with me, and we're looking for distribution now. And I have another client that I was talking to this morning who we're looking for distribution. So it's just a constant flow, you know. Somebody starts a film, somebody's in post-production, somebody's looking for distribution, and there's this flow of films, and I just love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. And I get to work on all these different films with all these different filmmakers. And it's the money that's the vehicle to get those films made. And yeah, for many years, even when I was ill, and I thought that I'd finished with filmmaking, and I didn't want anything to do with filmmaking anymore. But people would ask me, what I wanted to do. I produce movies. I mean, I've been saying for 20, 30 years, I just want to produce movies.
Amazing. And you're here today producing movies. Beautiful.
Yes.
Oh. And so
Yes.
where can people find you and work with you?
Oh, thank you. My film my book, is called Getting Your Film Funded, Produced, and Distributed Globally, which you can get on Amazon. And my website is filmmakersuccess.com. And if you want to book a call to speak to me, it's filmmakersuccess.com book/call.com. Oh, no, no, no. Filmmakersuccess.com book/call. And my email address is joanne@filmmakersuccess.com. So you can get in touch with me in lots of ways. I'm sure this podcast won't be out in time, but next week I'm teaching a class that I do at the end of every year, which is really about setting up your calendar for the following year. So next week, Thursday and Friday, I'm teaching a class that's really about that because it sounds like a silly thing. But if you have a calendar, like if a filmmaker wants to raise money and they're sort of, just swimming in creativity, but if you write down, oh, January 15th, I have to make this application, and February the 10th, I have to send this in, and the March, it it all starts to become real. I hear that from my clients a lot. Oh, it's become real,
Right. Yeah, 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 yeah.
real.
Yeah.
And moving forward, it's become real. It's moving forward. And then other people are like, wait, she's really making a movie. I better get on board.
Mhm. Absolutely. Well, it's having objectives and having goals and, timelines. Yeah, absolutely. It
Yes,
motivates you. Really important. Yeah. Amazing. Yeah.
yes.
Thank you so much. Yeah, no, it's been an absolute honor having you on, and I'll be dropping all the links in this podcast episode for people to get in touch with you. And it's been amazing hearing your journey and about how you overcame so much adversity and to be where you are today, making such a global impact and helping change so many lives. So I really honor you and appreciate you. Thank you, Joanne.
You are so kind. Thank you, Anu. It's such a pleasure.
Amazing. So, guys, if you want to connect, please do drop us a message. It's always great to hear from you, and Joanne would love to hear from you as well, I'm sure. And that's all we have time for today. I look forward to seeing you all in the next episode. Stay blessed, my friends.